there's no place on earth I wouldn't want to be than right here, in this minute of trying to bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The basic underlying principles that I want my team to play football that scares the life out of every opposition, mate. That's kind of the end game.
Good afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. This is the Varside Spurs podcast. My name is Ritch Grove, and joining me, as usual, is the ever-present Lee Brown. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not bad at all, actually. We have got a win to talk about again. We seem to be on a bit of a nice little streak, albeit maybe not the best of games, which we'll get into.
Yeah. Well, let's not dally about. FA Cup third round then, Friday night. Was it a potential banana skin, Lee? Were we ever really worried about losing to Burnley?
It's always a potential banana skin, though, isn't it? And you could see, right? I mean, one thing I would just want to start off with was that fucking commentary team. Lee Dixon and the
Lee
panel
Dixon.
that you could feel Jedi-like forces coming from that lot, willing there to be an upset. That's one thing I would say. I mean, their voices were dripping with malice towards us, weren't they?
Oh, just a bit. I mean, why on earth they get? Could they not have got somebody equally as banal, but just not associated with that lot down the fucking road to co-commentate it? Surely there are enough ex-footballers out there that they don't need to use Arsenal players.
It's mad. I mean, it's like about five of them on the bloody team, don't there? I mean, I can stomach Ian Wright just about, but the rest of them, oh, come on. I mean, just it's unbelievable. Anyway, enough about
Ian
those.
Wright, I've got to say, years and years ago, was interviewed on Five Live about his career. There was an extended interview. I can't remember who it was by now, but part of this program, they had a bit of a dive. I think it might have been not long after he retired. And it came out that before he went to Woolwich, there was quite a strong chance that he was going to come to us. Because, of course, in those days we had Lineker and Gascoigne, both of them continually being rumoured to be leaving the club. And actually, obviously, they both did. And actually he was quite positive about the club, quite effusive. He was talking back then that he wouldn't have minded going to Spurs at all, actually,
Mm.
and even though, he spent all them years at Woolwich, and then of course, he ended up playing for the biggest club in the universe, West Ham United, massive,
Massive.
massive club.
Yeah.
Um, that having been tainted by both of those organisations, he still often says reasonably nice things about Tottenham. I mean, I have got quite a lot of time for Ian Wright. It's got to be.
Yeah. And to be fair, he did play for Burnley at one point as well. So, you can, if anyone's going to be balanced, I think he will be. But the rest of them, no chance. And Lee Dixon,
Yeah.
honestly, he could barely conceal his hope that we were going to mess it up. I mean, basically the overarching theme of his commentary, which I think kind of bled into the other co-commentator, was I thought these were supposed to be the entertainers. They're a bit disappointing, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, you could tell, before the game, they were saying there's going to be goals galore in this match because Spurs have scored all these goals and conceded all these goals in their
Mm.
last 5 games and all this, it's goals good Friday night television. It's going to be, and the minute all that came out, I thought, yeah, here we
Setting
go.
us
We've
up.
done this before, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, to be fair, it would have been difficult for them to have been particularly effusive about our play
Hmm.
because it was pretty dire, wasn't it? But
Yeah.
that said, I'll take your point. I think the longer the game went on, they seemed to be gleefully rubbing their hands together at the prospect that Burnley were going to nick it.
Yeah, and no, I agree. But I mean, I wouldn't mind if they would have used some context in the fact that, as we know, as followers of our club, that we have been playing the same players over and over again, as we've said in, previous pods, where they are absolutely shattered and looking leggy, and they need this break. They played more games up to now than they've played in previous seasons, and it's showing. And and a lot of our better players are missing. Although some of them are starting to come back. We did have Van der Ven on the bench. I thought he might have got a run out, but he seemed to sort of save him. And then Benton Cool was captain. That was nice to
Mm.
see.
Yeah, yeah, and survived the game intact, which was even nicer
Mm.
to see.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there were
yeah,
some moments where, he looked like he might. He did that kind of, dare I say, Dembele-esque type thing where he looks like he's about to be robbed, then he just rolls the player and comes away with the ball. He just is the player that seems to be able to sort of make it more cohesive and make it tick. I think without him, we might have lost that game. The way he kind of took charge and was demanding the ball and was able to come away in you could have 5 or 6 players that are trying to close him down, and you would still fancy him to beat them. And often
yeah.
on that night, there were a few times where that was almost the case, and he came away with the ball. It was pretty impressive to see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wonderful to see that actually, like you say, he'd been out for what, 2 months again this time
Mm,
after playing a handful of games after being out for 9 months, with a pretty
mm.
serious injury. Um, that actually, I mean, although Burnley may not be the best litmus paper against which to test him, he did look like he was on pace, and that it wasn't going to take months because, the potential is for, it could take him a good month to get properly match sharp, but
Mm,
he did
mm.
look. He bossed the middle of that ground, didn't he? Really
Yeah,
effectively.
absolutely. I actually, it's sort of slightly digress here, but I really like the way that Ange brought him in the last game when no one had a clue, no ITKs, no one, seemed to have a clue. No one let slip in the club that he'd been training fully with them, and then all of a sudden he turns up, which apparently he's done a couple of times when he was at Celtic, and it gives me a little bit of hope that Maddison might turn up in the Man U game.
Well, I mean, if especially if you consider that, when Madison was pitch side before, I can't remember which match it was before Christmas, and one of them smug arseholes in a 3/4 length coat asked him, Humphreys or whatever, whoever it
Mm,
was, "Oh,
mm.
when are you coming back?" And he said, "Oh, actually, I think it's going to be like this." And if you remember, Ange was interviewed immediately
Yeah,
afterwards
yeah.
and blocked him for it. So, no,
You never know.
perhaps in this, that they're
Yeah.
managing media exposure to players' recovery as a tactic.
And even if he does or doesn't, I think it's quite a smart move to keep everyone on their toes, so nobody
Mm,
knows for sure. You just you make a plan, but then you're not sure if he's going to pull a bit of a mind game on you. I like that. It keeps the opposition on their toes. So yeah, let's
yeah,
hope he does turn up out of the blue. But if he doesn't, I think I think we'll be all right. We've got Van der Ven back. Sort of jumping ahead here now, but yeah, and a little bit of a break now until that game. So hopefully we'll get some of our legs back.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sunday, isn't it? So yeah, it's they got a full week, so they'll have had 9 days clear by the time they
Mm,
take it
mm.
against Man United. Um, you know, yeah. Let's talk about some of the other players that have come back. Then, I mean, he's been out that long, he might be considered to be a new signing, even in that sort of Darren Anderton mold. There's some fella called Ryan
So
Ryan
it begins with an S,
Smith's
doesn't it? Yeah,
son,
yeah.
Ryan
Shitting yon.
yeah, shitting shit. I don't know. Yeah. So,
He came back. Yeah,
he
that.
played for the club.
Yeah, we had a few subs later on which were quite pleasing. I think he replaced Johnson. Oh, actually, I thought had probably. I mean, I know Porro got man of the match because you can't not give him man of the match for that wonder strike. We'll come on to that, um, but Johnson, I thought throughout was the most lively. I mean, he had about 3 or 4 really good chances. One of them, I don't know if you remember this, was like Sun-esque. He sort of he cut in from the left and bent it like Sun does. And it had all that hallmarks of that. I thought it was going to go in, but the keeper saved it. But
Mm,
I thought he had the best or the better of the chances anyway from our lot, which isn't saying much because a lot of them look like they couldn't score in a whorehouse, and Richie, oh my God, I
yeah.
mean, I know we've tried to support him, but he was like a dog with a balloon.
he's got to do better, hasn't he? He
He's
has got
got
to
to do
do.
better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I do remember the Johnson chance. I was going to say about him that I think he's beginning to grow into that team in a little bit, isn't he?
Mm, mm,
I know certainly there's been some criticism of him in some circles of his performances up to this point. Some of that criticism probably quite justified,
mm,
considering the
mm,
sort of expectation and that he would come in and quite literally hit the ground running. He did have a couple of those opportunities cutting in from the left hand side where they started him. Yeah, the one where he took it, he cut in and took it on his right foot to shoot. The second one actually seemed a little bit more strange because he then tried to thread a pass
mm.
through to I forget who it was in the box with him. It might have been Destiny. I can't remember.
Might have been. Yeah, I think so.
And actually, it would have been easier to have taken the shot on at that point
Yeah,
because
I think you're right. It was Destiny. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think he was a little bit more effective once he switched to the right in the second half,
Mm,
but I think he seems to be growing, whether that's a confidence issue, whether it's a fitness issue, whether it's, obviously a lot's been said at the moment about how hard adapting to Angie's philosophy and tactics and approach is on players'
mm.
physicality in terms of picking up injuries. But possibly there is also some some sort of upward curve of general underlying fitness that needs to be achieved as well. And perhaps what we're seeing with Johnson now is that he is more able to cope with that kind of intensity for a longer period.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was a poor first half, and we did feel very disjointed. It felt immediately apparent that we didn't have Saul and we didn't have Son, and I think it took at least that first half for us to kind of sort of settle to any kind of routine. And I don't know whether Ange went in at half time and gave him a rocket or not, or just gave him clearer instructions. But they did come out stronger in the second half, I thought. Did you?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I think the fact that it was still tied later in the game played into our hands in that respect because actually what happened was Burnley grew in intensity and intent.
Mm,
And so that obviously has the knock-on effect that it allows us a little bit more space. Now, there was a lot of criticism in the commentary about Spurs in the final third, and actually we were taking too many touches, we weren't possibly being direct enough, not being quite so forceful and quick thinking at our feet as we are. That's possibly a consequence of
mm.
not having Son. But for the most part, particularly in the first half, you see every time you see us progress the ball into the final third, there are 9 Burnley shirts in and around that
Yeah,
18-yard box.
yeah.
They
It
were
was
really
really.
effective at cracking back. Yeah. So what happened in that second half is they started to push a little bit. I guess they were thinking, well, we can
Mm.
hit it now. And the
Yeah,
moment they started to apply that pressure, we found more space to exploit.
yeah.
That
No.
being said, the goal itself, beautiful goal, wonderfully well taken. Their goal kick, Turner, is it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In goal. I mean, that was the second or third time in the space of about 10 minutes that he just gifted us the ball on the edge of our
Mm,
18.
mm. Well, I mean, ironically, it was Richie's sort of profligacy. Is that's
Yeah,
the right word? I didn't put my
yeah,
teeth in. That basically allowed it as well, wasn't it? Because he just basically stepped on the ball and made a complete balls of it. The
mm,
keeper picked it up, threw it out to their defender. Porro robbed the defender, and then just cut in and thought, "I'll have some of this, might as well." And
yeah,
because, like you were saying, Rich, they were sitting in a low block for a lot of that game, which we didn't expect because they played usually play quite expansive football, haven't they? So they
mm,
played really defensively, hoping to get us on the counter. I think,
mm,
a lot of teams have done that against us, and we did really find it hard, especially with the sort of dearth in quality up front, missing Son and missing Sarr. So I think Porro just thought, right, I'm going to have a go at this, and he hits it 10 more times, and 9 of them don't go in. But
mm,
that was still, a fantastic technique.
yeah,
Lovely, lovely shot. Um, so ironically, Richie's mess up led to us getting that wonder goal anyway. Um,
yeah,
I just felt that in the second half, I think two things happened here. I think you're right. I think they started to believe more, and started to come out a bit more, because I think they frustrated the bloody life out of us.
Mm.
And when they I think, because there was a point I'm thinking, oh, they're gonna pinch this. I think it was Andonia, and a couple of times nearly or should have scored. Um, and then I think, like as you say, we took advantage that scoring that goal meant they had to come at us. And I
Yeah,
think we then started to show a bit more about what we're about, and we came on a lot stronger after that. I thought Hill coming on, I thought he pressed well.
yeah,
Nice little cameos from Scarlett and Donnelly.
yeah.
I in the end, I thought we managed the game without looking, eh, anywhere near our best.
Yeah, yeah, and I think if we're going to be magnanimous about it as well, we ought to say actually the fact that we came away with the victory was as much to do with their profligacy in front of goal. Again,
Yeah,
I need to borrow
yeah.
your teeth to say that.
Profligacy.
um,
That's it.
yeah, because I mean, right at the end there, their keeper heads down a corner, and it's to coin a phrase, Harry Redknapp's dog should have stuck that away, or his wife, or whoever the fuck it was
One and the
supposed to
same.
have scored
One
that
and the
goal.
same, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, mate. Oh, um, I mean, how they've missed that, because it
Ah.
comes that he nods it down, and I guess it was a yard behind the guy, but
Looked easier to hit the target than go over the bar.
it did, didn't it? It really
Yeah.
did. Yeah. Not quite Ronnie Rosenthal, but a bad miss. Um, and again, I think it would have been probably a fair result had they had got a draw, and we'd have had to have gone up there for a replay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think I think you're right. It could. I mean, there were times where I thought this is going to go tits up and we're going to lose this. It just had that sort of vibe about it. To pull one out the bag like that was an unusual, and it did have the hallmarks of an upset about it. We looked a little bit devoid of ideas at times, even though we did throw the kitchen sink. We had the most possession, we did press the most, but it was all going a bit too narrow, I felt, and that led it, that help them out because they just sat in that low block. And then anytime we tried to overplay it, which we were trying to do, and walk it through that defense to try and score a goal, we were getting nowhere. So it's no surprise that a wonder goal like that. I mean, it could have easily been a replay, or
Yeah,
or if Andoni had put that one away, a shock loss. But thank God,
thank
now we're going to start getting some players back. Hopefully, in the next rounds will be a lot better.
yeah. Well, this is this sort of quasi winter break coming up now, isn't it?
Mm,
We've got the Man United next Sunday. Then there's the fourth round. Obviously, as we're recording, they've not made the draw yet. And then after the fourth round draw, Wednesday, I think it's the 31st, isn't it? At the end of the month, right at the end of the month, we've got Brentford at home. So by the time we play Brentford, hopefully we should have start getting obviously the AFCON players, and Sonny probably, we're not going to have got any of them back by that point. Even if their respective countries go out early.
mm, mm.
But we should be looking at seeing players like Madison, like you say, Mickey van der Ven's made the bench. We think that he'll probably start against United.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, by the 31st of January, we're going to have broken transfer record 2 or 3 times, are we not?
Yeah. Yeah, well, definitely don't think we'll break any transfer records, but I think we'll be smart. I think, look at this, one that looks like it's pretty much done is Werner.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, say what you like about him, but he is a striker. He's played for his country a number of times. I think if Ange wants him, that's good enough for me. He must think because he's quite quick, so he might think he would fit this system better than he did, with Chelsea. And I would say, I mean, it may or may not work out, but I would say that the player himself probably wants to prove people wrong. By the way, his record with Chelsea wasn't disastrous. He did score 44 goals for them.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it wasn't a buffoon, but I think this system will suit him better. And the other night just showed us clearly we really do look light up front with without Son, and of course the snake has gone to Bayern Munich.
Yeah, yeah. Don't know who you mean. Speaking about Bayern Munich, apparently they need to get a babysitter for the snake. Eric
Yeah.
Dyer apparently off there. Ange was particularly barbed in the way that he
Mm.
dismissed the question after the match. Did you see that?
Yeah, someone asked him, didn't they? Would that stop you selling him if because of injuries and that, or something along those lines? And he went, no.
No. Yeah.
So
Can you cope? Can you cope without Eric Dyer now that Ben Davies has done his
that's
hamstring? I
it.
think.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, be an interesting move. You wouldn't have foreseen Eric Dyer going to Bayern Munich after having not really kicked a ball for 6 months.
no, no, no. But I mean, like we said last pod, it, contrary to what a lot of people think, I think that people have not really given him enough respect. He's not a donkey.
No.
He is actually a good player. Just again, like Højbjerg, just not for this system. And if he goes there, he might be a squad player rather than a starter, but I'm sure he'll do well. He'll probably fit that because I think it's slower out there. The way
Mm.
we play, how fast we play, is just really not him. It speaks volumes. You put in Emerson in there instead of him.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it seems to be curtains for him, and
Yeah,
if he go in between now and us recording the next pod, then we'll wish him well because actually he's served us really well over the years, hasn't he, Eric?
yeah,
He's
yeah. He has.
right from day one, his debut goal against biggest club in the world,
Yeah,
last minute, if you remember that,
yeah,
back in the door mists of time.
yeah, yeah. I've sung many a time. I love Eric Dyer. I'm sure we all have. I think we
Yeah,
we have to remember this. Like we said last when we paid tribute to Hugo. There was a time where those players were favourites, like Delhi. And there
yeah,
was a time. Don't forget, and we're looking now with rose tinted spectacles back at Delhi, but there was a time where we were all saying get rid.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
sometimes absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Mm,
And in time, players like Hugo and players like Dyer and maybe Delhi, when they're panelists on something and they're praising our club or becoming ambassadors for our club, we'll look back fondly because there was a time where they were fundamental to one of the best teams we'd seen in a long, long time for Spurs.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've got to admit, my favourite thing, my memory of Eric Dyer will probably always be, when he came out quite early in Pochettino's tenure, pound for the square jar there. Um, that you remember the post-match interview. We hear what people say about Tottenham, and we don't like it. It was
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
one of those galvanising comments,
Mm,
that
mm.
really epitomised that time and
Yeah.
that early team. So yeah. I mean, yeah, like you say, absence makes the heart grow fonder. I for one, I think Ange would get a tune out of Dele Alli. If Everton
And
can't pay for him, send him back, because
yeah,
they're a bit strapped for cash. I reckon if anybody could get a tune out of Delhi, it'd be Postecoglou.
you old romantic, you.
Well, I mean, don't you think that actually he would probably fit that system quite well,
Yeah, if he's still not getting a game for Everton though, is he?
Well, he has been injured. He's been out injured. I think he's only been training with the first team since just before Christmas.
Mm,
So
mm.
he was carrying an injury, and obviously he's been sort of treated for addiction and various other
Mm,
issues as
mm.
well. So it's not as if he's been sat there waiting and ready to play recently. But anyway, that's a
Yeah.
whole of it's very very unlikely to ever happen. Um,
But yes, I would love it as well.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's been a couple of days since the Burnley game. It's fading into memory. I mean, I
It
don't
will be
really
a
know.
footnote, won't it? I mean, it's not one of those games that's going to live long in the memory. If we go on and do well in this cup or win it, it won't be a game we'll remember along the way for sure.
No,
But we did the job. We got through. That's all that matters. Whatever you say, I mean, sometimes you just have to. Sometimes you just have to get the job done, and that's it. And
yeah,
that's what we
and
did. It wasn't a
that's what
great game, but we did the job.
we did the job. Yeah, yeah, that's the most important thing. We're in the draw. Like I say, we've got a 9 days of rest in between now, which should be great for fitness for returning players. Do we know? It's for those
Still
that are
nil
listening,
nil.
is it still 0-0 in the other
Still
one?
0-0 between Liverpool and the Goons, who are
Yeah,
wearing shirts, white shirts, because obviously they would rather really be Spurs, wouldn't they?
they would. They would. They'd love it. I mean, and that's why when you suggest it, they all cry and get really worked up and excited about it, is because it's the truth.
Yeah, and of course, Saka's been tackled a few times, so there's a few letters going to go into the PGOML,
Yeah,
MOL,
yeah,
because
yeah.
you're not allowed
Well,
to do that anymore, apparently.
not allowed to do that. Yeah, it's a strange fixture though, isn't it? Liverpool Arsenal. It's one of those rare games that happens in the football calendar where you hope that they both lose.
Yeah,
Um,
and
you
both
know,
get
or
a number of bad injuries as well.
both get a number of bad injuries, COVID super spreading outbreak, and
Yeah,
all that.
yeah.
To the players and coaching
TB, can
staff.
I say that? You know,
Yeah, that would be entirely acceptable. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, let's just hope that we avoid one of them, until later on in the competition. It'd be nice if
yeah.
we got, an
Is
older shot or somebody like Coventry maybe
is the draw tonight, Rich?
tomorrow evening, I think.
Tomorrow evening, right? Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Right,
I'd love a Coventry City. I think that'd be a lovely
that'd
little
be nice,
fix.
wouldn't it? Get
Yeah,
revenge.
yeah. You never ever ever get bored of punching them faces. You know. I think on that note, we're going to let our fair suffering listeners go. Um, you know,
Should we do a
winter
quick
break.
prediction for the Man U game, do you reckon, or should we wait and do
Yeah,
that a bit later?
no, no. I think we should. I think we probably should, shouldn't we? I mean, actually, it's a really difficult one to call this time because they're terrible at the minute, aren't they, Man United?
They're terrible, yeah. I mean, they always seem to turn up against us, but we should have, well, we will have Van de Ven back. We might have this Dragosan defender in as well, so we might not need to worry about Romero. There's something about me that thinks Romero might just bloody turn up as well as Madison for this game, you know? It's just something, some rabbit is going to be, another rabbit's going to be pulled out of the hat. I feel it. It feels like that sort of game where all of a sudden someone's going to get out of the grave, and just go like, I'm ready.
I mean, they're a team for the taking, aren't they? That's the thing, Yeah, predict. What is your prediction then? What players aside?
Um, 3-1 Spurs.
Bloody hell, bold, bold.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think
I'm
they're
gonna.
there. I think you're right. They're there for the taking. I think with Van der Ven back, what we can do is we can press higher. We've got the 9 days off. We
Mm,
got with Van der Ven, I think because he mops up, we can press higher. And I think that's one of the things that have made us look worse recently is we've been dropping back a bit too much, looking a bit more Conte-like, and so I think hopefully his if this other guy comes in as well who's quite rapid, I think we might be really on the front foot for that game and take it to him.
I think we're going to take it to them, aren't we? I think almost regardless of who the personnel are, we've seen, that's the approach he's going to take. And like you say, I think this 9 day rest is really important. That should deal with that legginess, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we've got two teams coming up in the league, Man United and then Brentford. Obviously we're at
Mm,
Old Trafford for that one, and then we're at home against Brentford. Brentford are in a bit of a wobbly. They're normally a really difficult side to play.
mm, mm.
There's talk of them losing key players during the transfer window as well. I think both of these January league games plus the cup, they're all very, very winnable. And you don't say that about going to Man United
No.
very often. I did read the other day it's their worst run of form in the league since 1990 or 1989. Back in the days when everybody was calling for Ferguson's head.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know if we've got 3 goals in us, but I think I'm going to go for a 2-1 Spurs win.
Cool. I'll take that.
Yeah, and for the same for the Brentford game as well, actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice one. Yeah, I mean, we might do. Hopefully, we do a pod before that one, but and we'll have a better idea of who we got and who's back and all that kind of stuff. I think that will shape up and change things in our predictions. But as it stands, yeah, I'd go with what you just said, Rich.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 2-1, 2 league wins in January. We'll get Coventry at home in the cup and do to them what they did to my local side, Oxford, yesterday. Put 6 past them.
Nice.
Yeah, that'd be a nice January for me.
Yep.
Right. On that note, you, my friend, look like you're freezing to death in your studio there. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna get out your misery and tell you to get back in the house by the fire, Lee.
Thank you very much. And
Come on,
you Spurs.
You know, there's no place on earth I wouldn't want to be than right here. You know, in this minute of trying to bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The basic underlying principles that I want my team to play football that scares the life out of every opposition, mate. That's kind of the end game.